Hello, everyone.
Greetings.
Hello. How does it go?
It
Happy
goes
Sunday.
well. Yeah, happy Sunday. Sundays are happy days, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
They're happy and they're sad all at the same time.
Yeah,
I don't have to work, but there's impending doom tomorrow.
yeah. It's that. There's that really interesting pre-Monday doom and gloom that sets in. You know, that's just like
The calm before the storm.
right. It's like, oh, Monday, boo. Yeah. All right. So we are here just chatting to kind of do some talk about our little worlds that we've created and our homebrew stuff. We're here to talk all things homebrew, all things worlds. So, yeah. Chat. We are taking questions from the chat. If there's anybody there, are you there? Otherwise,
Anybody out there?
otherwise, we're gonna ask each other questions.
Yes. Because I have questions for you guys.
Ah.
I have
Well-
questions for you, and I have questions for myself about how to question Chars, but you know.
So let
Yeah, why don't you start asking Mark Anthony a question and I'll type some stuff in the chat.
okay. I was gonna start some lowball stuff with you, but I
Oh.
guess I can go for my.
Do some lowball stuff, that's fine.
Okay. We'll start. We'll start low. I noticed there's a lot of interesting words in your campaign, like Safra being one. Some of the people's names. Do you have like? Do you pull from any specific regional or literary source for your names? And do a lot of any of the names that you typically choose have more meaning to them from other languages? I don't know if I'm probably not asking clearly, but I think you get my drift.
No, I get what you're saying. So I don't really pull from any particular thing or languages or anything like that. Some of them, if I'm like writing something ahead of time and I just like really need a name, there's this really awesome website I go to. It's called the Seventh Sanctum, seventhsanctum.net, I think it is. I've used them since I was in high school, like needing character namers for things. So they've been around for a really long time, and it's basically full of a bunch of name generators for things. You could get like tavern names, you can get spell names and things like that. Usually they're not in the like obscure kind of genre that some of the names that I come up with are. In that case, I just kind of put in a bunch of kind of sounds together. I guess part of it is also like my background with linguistics, because I was a linguistics minor in college. So I pulled together a bunch of sounds or randomly generated names. There's something else I was going to mention about that. Oh yeah, sometimes if I'm like feeling really stumped, I will just like hit the keyboard and like whatever letters are there, I'm going to put vowels in where it needs to make it sound like a word. Which is real dumb.
That is actually really cool, though. I like that. And I love it. I love it. SJ comes up with the preamble to his question being a low ball question.
I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing lore heavy.
It's not, but that's that's a pretty intense one. You know, if he's taking it from like, different cultures and whatnot.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
appropriation.
no appropriation that I'm aware of, so if that happens though.
But the name generator might.
Name generator might. The name generator is actually kind of cool because it has like you could have it generate Lovecraftian names or like angelic names that follow like a Judeo-Christian kind of sound to them. like
That's
you
so
know
cool.
Azrael or something like that. So sometimes that's I'll go for something of those if I'm like thinking very specifically, like it needs to have this kind of like Lovecraftian sort of sound to it. But and then of course characters like Lisa, literally the first name that comes to mind.
I think I had a Lisa, didn't I?
I think you did.
I think that was the woman that was like all fawning over the tavern brawler
Hmm.
in Torm's Respite.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
funny
That
as
was a
heck.
long time ago.
That was so long ago. I mean, but yeah, what
These are your
about
brothers? The
what?
first random name you come up with for a female is Lisa. They don't even have a sibling named Lisa.
No, we don't. Well, what about you guys? What do you guys do for names?
I am very opposite when I do have.
Hey, Mofongo. Sorry to interrupt you. Mofongo, welcome. Just chilling.
What's up? Welcome. We're just hanging out, answering and asking some questions. The question asked was, where do we get names for things? Shars has like a generator that he likes to go to, and he does some random stuff to help him out. I pull a lot of mine from, because I'm very not creative, so I pull from things that already exist. So I pull from like a culture or something, or a nation, or some historical or mythological significance, and I use that. And a lot of times, like, people's names will sort of match with their personalities, or directly conflict with their personalities. Like Habib, so he was like a gentleman that stole from the party. Habib is something akin to like friend or loved one, if I'm understanding correctly. And I just take things from people that I ask, like, hey, are you familiar with what this might mean? Or I might go to Google and be like, different translations in different languages for a certain characteristic. And then, especially for town names, like my campaign is very heavily like mythological spin-off based, and a lot of the towns are going to be named after like someone important who is there or that dictates their culture. A lot of like cities today, like there's like different names for different saints, like Saint Vincent's, things like that. So I figured I'd draw upon that, make some parallels.
Nice. Welcome, Sky. We are just doing
What's up, Jim?
we're doing some Q&A about our worlds. So if y'all got questions about our worlds or our processes or whatever, just pop them into the chat and we'll talk about it.
What's up, Jimbo? I call him Jimbo Slice.
Ah,
Like Timbo Slice.
not to be confused with Jimbo, which is a character in Safra, which was one of the names that I pulled out of my ass.
I think I named him.
Oh, did you?
And you ran. Yeah, I think I was like.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was like, who would I know? And you were like, I don't know, the quartermaster. And I was like, Jimbo, the quartermaster. And then you were like, we're going with it. And
Yeah.
everyone was like, all right, it's Jimbo.
Yeah. I very specifically remember now being like, you know what? He's part of your character's story, your character's boss. You name him, because I couldn't think of anything. All right, we got
Yeah, I think mine's a little different. Obviously, I am doing a book, so there's a lot of like, the cities are very segregated. It's, there's the Kuatoan city, there's the Dark Dwarf city, the Deep Gnome city, and so it's a lot different I don't always stick to the names that are given. I'll stick with like the monarchy, like whoever's ruling the city, whoever is very important, main enemies, like the grub guy. But otherwise, what I'll do, which I'm sad about, like not remembering Jernome's name that I came up with before, because what I'll do is I'll look through like the listing of all of the names of deep gnomes, dark dwarves, whatever it is, and then I'll like say the name. I'll say whatever, like I'll just read through them, saying the names, and then I'll like hear the sounds and put this sound with this sound to create a name that I like, and then kind of base the personality off of like the hard sounds or the softer sounds, whatever it is, and that kind of like helps me to like build the personality and build the name. And then there's fucking Jernome.
But that's the thing, like we're always gonna have these, like each of us have these situations where we've got these like really well thought out like high fantasy names, and then Lisa. Cool. So we got another question in. How long did it take y'all to come up with the concept for each homebrew? Estes, you want to start?
So my concept for mine probably took me about 2 months. I remember we were playing a campaign that ended abruptly, and I was missing it very, very much so. So I just sort of like got out a notebook, and I started in a weird place. I started in a place I would not recommend you start where I started. I started drawing a map, and I just was like, okay, so and let's populate this map. And I was just like, okay, so I think it's going to be like a fresh world, like gods are still very recent in human history and memory, and not just a legend. They're like actual things. So it's probably going to be earlier in the historical timeline. So probably there's going to be a heavy amount of segregation. The economies are going to be like such. They're not going to be super well refined or service industry based. And I just sort of went from there. Designed my government, my economies, and I decided from the very get-go it was going to be fairly high magic in the world. So it took me probably about 2 or 3 weeks to like design the world, but I designed my whole world all at once. So it then took me at least another month after that to flush out more. And there's still empty parts. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
There's no point in filling up somewhere that we are not going to go to.
Yeah.
Having a general idea and then filling it as we like go there seems appropriate.
Yeah. And that's
There's
kind of
definitely easier ways to do it than the way I did it.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of the fun part of it is if you have gaps to kind of help let your party, your players kind of help fill those in. That's one thing that I really liked, and that's one thing that I did with my campaign. So with mine did not start out with a map, not quite. That was actually the second thing that I did. The first thing I did was kind of come up with I had this like an image of a scene that I wanted to happen, and then I started building around that kind of main event. And it was supposed to be the very first thing that the party did. But then I started building so much around it that the party has not actually gotten to that event yet. So I think that's really funny. But yeah, so like building, I started building out like some of the main story. I identified the main conflict, and kind of the key players. But then before I could get further into that, I had to make my map. And so what I did is one evening I was super bored. I think my husband was out of town or something like that. And so I like spread this giant piece of paper across my couch, and I had this like ottoman that was right in the middle of it and everything. And I just like dumped a bunch of beans on it. and then I just started tracing like all of the continents out. And in order to decide how many continents my world would have, I rolled a d20, and whatever number that was how many like major land masses there were going to be. And so like I started kind of grouping things, and so that's how I got my world map, and that's how we got the shape of the continent of Safra, and then started figuring out what nations would be there, so that I could then start to think about what some of the main conflicts could be, and what some of the other stuff is. But it all kind of started with one key thing that I had in my mind that I wanted to happen, to kind of start everything off.
I really like that idea
Yeah.
for making your world map. That is super cool. That is really innovative way to do that.
You know, if we ever get like permanent space for us or anything, I'm gonna bring it and just put it on the wall.
Yeah, for me, I haven't like I'm doing a book, so obviously that doesn't really like count as far as homebrew. I've been like creating my own idea for once Out of the Abyss is over, and the way that I've started like my whole thought process was I thought of a cool mystery that I thought would be fun to figure out, and then from there I kind of have a little bit of like a beginning place, like a starting zone, if you will, and then I'm gonna kind of move that into how does that fit into like the rest of the world. You'll find out how that goes, I'm sure, in the future.
If I could add something real quick, another thing that I did when I did have my map drawn out is I asked everyone, I was like, okay, free, like blank sheet, tell me about a character, like tell me about their hometown, where they live, what everything is, and then I designed their origin story around that. I didn't say, I'm sorry, this is the parameters you have to fit in. I'm like, no, you do whatever you want, and I will design the place, and I'll say you're from here because that makes the most sense. So I really let my players have a more of a hands-on position designing the start of the world, by saying I want to play this and I want the freedom to play this.
Yep, and that's part of the thing that we do with some of the characters. So like we did, for our Tyrion's backstory, and for Lenora's backstory, and who's another one? Not so much Crow, but for some of those backstories, I kind of let the players choose kind of what their town is like, what kind of, where they are generally, and things like that. And that's kind of how we, started building out some of those gaps in our worlds. Yeah. Okay. What else? We are joined by one of our Proving Ground players. You cannot see him, but he is lurking in the background, and you can probably hear him if he talks.
Oh, you can't see me?
I haven't added you to the stream yet. Like, we can see you.
Oh. Okay.
Viewers
I see you.
cannot.
Hi. I'm right here, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can also talk about homebrew stuff because you DM, right? So like,
Yeah. Shit, when did I start my campaign? Last year sometime, I think. So I've been doing it like almost a year, or a little over a year now. I don't know. My homebrew is that I just steal everything. So like,
legit.
There's a podcast called Not Another D&D Podcast, and I liked the world that Brian Murphy made, so I was like, sweet, I'm gonna steal that and just rename it. So I took like a bunch of stuff out of that, and then I was like, I want it to be a dark setting. How can I make it dark? And I was like, oh, Bloodborne has a bestiary compendium? Okay, well, we're just gonna make everything Bloodborne enemies. And then I'll just reskin them. So, I don't know, most of my homebrew stuff is just I go search the internet for interesting things and then I just adjust it to fit into the campaign. I'd say if anything, most of the homebrewing too is we change a lot of the rules when we play. Like we didn't necessarily like the hunger system or other stuff like that that typically 5e has, so we went in and adjusted things. Certain things that take movement, like standing up from prone, I talked with my players and we decided like that was going to take an action instead of movement, because they liked the idea better that a monster would have to waste an action to get up, and it of course applies to them. So I don't know, most of my homebrew stuff is just adjusting rules.
Yeah, that's part of the fun part too, isn't it? Adjusting rules. We have another question in the chat. What has been the favorite character you've ever played? What is it? Well, my favorite character, I mean, probably Xyler in the Proving Grounds has been my favorite. I really did like my very first character, my first character in a campaign that lasted a little bit longer than one session, but he was an Eladrin wizard, and that was a lot of fun. He was an evocation wizard, so that was more fun.
That's fun. I like that.
My favorite character, I think, was honestly Valir from Icespire.
Yeah.
He was a Circle of the Stars druid. And
Oh, Circle of Stars is pretty dope too. Like
it's super cool.
I
had him flavored very much like Saruman,
okay.
but like a little more whimsical. He was just like a super serious douche, but like took himself too seriously to where it was just stupid and funny to like other people. Like why the fuck are you making this analogy right now, guy? We're in the middle of a fight, and then like, you know, using like a slingshot and imbuing stones with magic and just being like, this is my thing. Yeah, I really liked the flavor of that character, and then obviously I really like Ko. He's my first character, so he's just super strong.
Yeah.
He's my highest level too, so.
My- My first character I made was just way too edgy for his own good as a ranger, but my favorite character I have is in another buddy of mine's campaign. I don't know if you've ever read, if you remember the series Redwall way back in the day.
No.
But so I made a Martin the Warrior, Mousefolk Meadow Guard. So he's like this canonically little 1 foot tall mouse that has like 2 rapiers and wants to go assist everybody with their issues, but he's a tiny 1 foot mouse, but he doesn't really take that into consideration. So like in this whole one shot and campaign, it's like just everywhere he goes, he's like, I'll fix your problems, and he really can't. So he has to rely on the entire party to instead like assist him with every whim that he goes on. So that's my favorite character to play, and fighter with a custom archetype called the hero, and it basically, you know, you have things like I guess I don't play spellcasters, so like sorcery points or stuff like that, right? Or like what is it, key points for monks? So you get the same thing as a fighter, but it's to do like heroic moments where you get to like have advantage on something, or like you get to add +10 to your acrobatics to do like a finishing feat, or you can switch places with the character who's about to die and take the blunt end of the damage instead. So it's a fun little class.
That sounds like
Nice.
a freaking funny little character,
It's
honestly.
it's super fun. I
It's so
love playing.
entertaining.
That's cute.
Like, and because he's 1 foot tall, the DM has me categorized as a small creature. So like, there's one guy in the party who's a Goliath. So like, I ride around on him in combat all the time, and like try to jump off of him onto enemies. So he's fun. I like him.
Oh, that's cool. That makes me think of my fairy cleric. That's a trickery domain cleric, and the lore that I like pulled into it is it follows Fey lore really tightly. So it's like this character can't touch iron. They cannot directly they can't directly lie, but they can mislead. And this character specifically was just so fascinated by the fact that everyone, like especially humans, everything, you could just lie. Like you can just tell someone something that's not true. That like boom blows my mind. But like trickery domain, because it's super tricksy and everything. That's kind of where I go. Estes, what about you? What was your favorite character?
I don't know. So Chad, of course, is one of my favorites. Will always be one of my favorites, just because it's so fun to play his personality and to like willingly be less intelligent, and I think that's really fun. But I don't. It's a tie between a couple. It's a tie between the Warforged Clockwork Soul sorcerer, because
The Punisher.
Yeah, the Punisher with ones for the eyes, and three. So it's a PUN1SH3 or
Yeah.
3. It's like, but it's just so cool because he's a clockwork soul, but he's made out of a bunch of cogs and stuff. So it was really cool playing combat with him, like role playing the combat.
That's
I
not the
did also
jukebox.
No, I did. I
Okay.
liked the jukebox bard as well. Like that was a lot of fun. He just puts a tape cassette in his chest cavity and like opens his mouth, and then he sings the song as it was created.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, that one was pretty cool too. Yeah, I think those have got to be my favorites.
Nice.
The other one I created that was a lot of fun was for a one shot. Our DM allowed us to once again use some homebrew stuff, so I played an awakened dog barbarian as the character, so it can't actually speak to the party. But then as the barbarian, I chose like form of the beast since it's a dog, so I could use all like the bite, claws, and tails and stuff. And I had was super into Elden Ring at the time, so like I have it with a giant greatsword it carries around in its mouth to attack people.
Oh,
So that's another one of my more fun characters I like playing.
Yeah, there's a few that I have yet to play that I have in my back pocket, so I'll save those for another day.
yeah. Same. I think
You
that's part
almost had
of.
to pull one of those out today.
I mean,
Yeah, I
so
did.
part of the problem of like having all these ideas for characters and then being like a forever DM like me, or like like our group, right, only playing in a couple of long standing campaigns, is that we don't really get a chance to experience these other characters that we come up with, right? Like I've got a little kid who is a necromancer who just wants to have friends because nobody wanted to be his friend, and like that is something that I'll probably never get to play. Who knows? So like I honestly, in today's Out of the Abyss, I would have been like 100% okay if my character died, because I'd get to play something new, like
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you
It's
guys
rough.
got really close there.
yeah.
You were two off. And Jinja was two off, and if
It could have been
Scary, yeah.
bad.
Grab-a-boo.
Yeah,
Everyone
Glabagool
was
to save the day. So if you if you did not tune in to this morning's Out of the Abyss game, it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. So like you can go and watch it and see us almost die. Okay, we're still waiting for one of our players for Proving Grounds. So let's just keep this kind of Q&A going for a little while until he gets here, and then we'll switch over to Proving Grounds and kind of pick that story back up.
I had a question for Mark. So, what is the surface like, if you can divulge that information? Because I haven't been to the surface maybe I don't know. I don't know if I could remember the surface, what it's like.
Would your character have ever spent any time on the surface world?
Probably not.
On the surface?
The surface world is something similar to. Have you seen or played Remnant from the Ashes?
No.
No.
It sounds familiar.
I know what it is, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's-
I almost bought it a couple times.
It's very apocalyptic up top. Obviously not as modernized as that game is, but you know, it's like desolate. And I guess a good way to think of it would be the Upside Down from Stranger Things.
Yes.
It's
Why is this- This
very
seems so
upside down.
familiar.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I've seen this game. This is what? Basically Dark Souls with guns.
It's like Dark Souls
Yeah,
with guns,
Yeah,
no magic.
I've seen this one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I heard it was a lot of fun.
Stranger Things Upside Down, I would say that's really close. Because as you know, there's like demon lords taking over the Underdark, but this like presence and power is like seeping through, and they're actually taking over more than you would expect. Just their power, just like their sheer strength is doing that. Like,
Interesting.
So Zarlo has been busy then, because he's from the surface, part of a not a convent. What are they called? It's like a similar name. Anyway, a group of battle healers who are deployed to areas that are, you know, heavy hit by catastrophe.
yeah, and I don't remember. Were you like the last thing that you would have remembered? Was it? I feel like it was either desert or forest. What was your last experience on the surface?
Forest.
Forest. So
Yeah, our company got jumped, and then the next thing I knew, I was in the Underdark, in a prison.
yeah. So basically, imagine you're like, you know, you have the forest, but it's almost like it's oozing. Is a good way to describe it. Like, you know, before it would have been lush and green. Now it's like dripping with decay.
Gross.
Like that's kind of it's a fast transformation that's been going on.
Gross. All
Yeah,
right.
brother, that's just the field at Fort Knox, Kentucky. That's exactly what that sounds like.
Oh,
Just dripping.
I'm
gosh.
sorry. You didn't mean to bring it up.
Some trauma there. Okay, well, all of our players are here for Proving Ground, so what we're actually going to do is we're going to end this stream and get back on our new stuff. So thanks for doing this Q&A. We're going to plan a couple more of these because this was kind of fun. So keep an eye out for the notification to join Proving Grounds here in a minute.
All right. I'll see you on the other side.
Whoa.
You mean Harry.